Step one of any good car day in the South this time of year. Take your Zyrtec, because boy, it is. We don't get snow, but we get pollen. And got 3 inches today. So, we did it. We, bam. We banged out the will it run, the will it drives, the will it stops, and, you know, we haven't really touched the steering, but we know it steers on the Te51. Now, let's get out the grinder and grind through and make this thing lower, right? I mean, it's still not a great street car or anything, but at least we can slam it and make it look awesome. So let's do that. A lot of people know this, but not everybody. Step one of slamming your car is always make sure you have cool wheels to put it on, so you can really appreciate the new stance. So let's get some tires on these things. All right, bang out the other one, get them on the car. By my calculations, we need a 5-inch drop. Probably not going to do that though. I'm thinking a 3-inch drop, which feels small to me, but it's a Class A car. So got some 3-inch blocks in the shed. That thing's leaking. Anyway, got some 3-inch blocks in the shed. We'll grab those, toss them on the back. The back's the easy part. We'll start there. All right, we got her all up in the air. We'll go ahead and get all the hardware with some Fever Bleeber. Hopefully be able to free these U-bolts up. They look terrible. Normally, you know, I would modify the leaf pack to get some of this drop. I'm not really going to bother with that today. I think we're going to be fine with just the 3-inch blocks on this car. Might have to modify the exhaust because it's over the axle. And I don't know if these shocks are going to compress shorter. Actually, with the blocks, they'll be long enough for sure. So, let's go ahead and get all that done. You know the drill. First order of business, pull the bump stops. Already pulled this bolt because I was going to use it to pull this drum off when we got the car. And I did. But then the hole stripped. That's tightening. Let's not do that. Gah! Now, you can just trim these. Boop. We might do that. But that's completely up to you and how low you end up going. On the wagon, this bracket's fully cut off and the frame rail is actually notched because that car is like 6 or 7 inches lower than stock. So there's no room for the bump stop. This one 3 inches lower. If we left the bump stop completely in, it would probably just sit right on the bump stop. If we trimmed it down maybe 2 inches, probably have 1.5 inches of travel. But we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to do the box and afterwards clean up whatever mess we need. Supported the axle with a jack. Popped our shocks off. Time to bust all the U-bolts out. So, next we'll jack the axle up off the springs and see if we can't or not get this spring rubber isolator doodad pad out. This could stay in the car. Completely up to you. It's to reduce noise, vibration, and harmonics, but can also make for weird pinion angle changes. I usually remove them. Not necessary. Rubber pads are out. Everybody knows those ain't cool. What's cool is 3-inch blocks. Not really. 3-inch blocks are kind of lame too. But being 3-inch lower is pretty cool. So, next step, slide them bad boys in there. All right, we're singing right along. We've been here before. We've crossed this bridge, but pretty sure we'll have to cross it again. So, that's your standard U-bolt for drop blocks. That's your standard U-bolt for little baby cars from the 70s and 80s. And as you can see, tiny little holes. As you can see, much more larger shaft. Ain't gonna fit. So, we'll have to drill those out. But that's the next step on the itinerary. Blam, 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 blam. And remember guys, I'm not a professional. These are not instructional videos, these are unstructional videos, because, well, a professional wouldn't do stuff like this. I drilled my holes, you know, right here, bunch of nice sharp metal shavings, right here, where I'll be laying on my back later. So, splinters, don't do that. Got our blocks on both sides, got our shocks on both sides. Slap the wheels on, move to the front. That'll be an ordeal. Blammo. All right, so what we got here? Old style McPherson strut. The logical choice, blam, cut these springs. You know, like 3 inches, done. But we're not gonna do that. We are gonna turn these stock strut housings into a coilover. These old ones like this might not even have a cartridge in it. This might actually just be liquid filled, and the rod is the damper rod. But it might also have a cartridge in it. A little easier to explain once we start taking it apart. Now, next step, compress these springs, blast top pads. I don't have a spring compressor, so let's not get hurt, but time to do some sketchy. Do I advise that you do this? Absolutely not. Do I advise that I do this? Absolutely not. But these older cars have some lightweight cars, have some lightweight springs, so more than likely it won't take much to compress this and protect us from impending doom. So I think that's enough, so long as the strap stays put and doesn't break. I think we can safely blast the top hat free. Safe and sound. No explosions. Kind of takes away from the fun, huh? Boom. All right, now, I believe the technical term for big ass nut is actually gland nut, which is just as funny sounding. Anyway, these things, they've got a little bit of damping, which is impressive considering this car is a 78. But step one of this whole process is find a way. There's a special tool for this, or channel locks, or a chisel. Gotta get the gland nut off. Once that's off, pull all the whatever's inside out and move on with our coilover building assembly process. Now, if they've been apart before, you can sometimes get away with the channel locks, but my vise is not going to be up to this task. Take it to the floor now, y'all. All right. Come on now. That does need to come off clean because we need the threads, and we very well might need this gland nut to put this back together. So if this is a cartridge type, then we'll just have a shock coming out of here and some oil. If this is a wet type, well, then we're gonna have a whole bunch of oil dump out of here. So probably prudent to stand it up until we find out. Boy, I was worried we weren't gonna get that gland nut off. Wet type. Instead of having a cartridge in here, we have kind of this multi-tube design here, where this cylinder is leaking all over the place. Drip pan, quick, quick, quick. Absolutely nothing quick about running to the backyard to get that drip pan. But anyway, so this is our extremely complicated, very messy shock system. Looks like it's probably been rebuilt before. I don't know, maybe not. But this kind of looks like ATF to me. Pretty thin. Works pretty good. But we're going to replace that with a much simpler solution. Now, even with the cartridge type, there's usually a little bit of oil in here to keep them from seizing and keep everything moving well. So we're not going to add more oil when we put ours back together, but it'll probably still be a little bit messy. That disassembled housing is now going to be a coilover in its second go at life. Let's strip the other one, get them both ready, and then we'll explain the process. New plan. Looks like we're making a special service tool because this old feller don't want to play along. Yep, we're gonna glue that together. No, because the cartridge still just... Man, who welded this junk? Yeah. Stronger vise. As you can see down here at the Miles' Racing Fabrication Association, we've got all the right tools for those hard, complicated, and specific jobs. The Dodge vise ended up being what we needed. Good Lord. All right, now that we've got them both disassembled, our next step will be grind down these welds, or cut right here at the base of the welds to get our spring perch off, both of them. Then we'll have to grind that flat. Zoink. One down, two to go. One down, one to go. Now we'll just have to take our flappy disc and take down this ground or weld and obviously get all the schmutz out of here. Repeat the process on casing number 2. Starting to look kind of familiar though, right? It's kind of starting to look like a coilover now. We're getting there. Well, Houston, we have a pretty major problem. So, plan here. Short struts, boop. Shorten these, and coilover sleeves. I've already bought. In fact, I've already used the springs out of. But I've misplaced them. Houston, we have a major problem. I cannot find my coilover sleeves. It's a pretty big box. Just bought them recently. Really hope I didn't throw them away because my trash just came. I'm so mad at myself. So, I'm sitting here convinced, you know what? I definitely picked up a heavy box that I thought had empty rotors in it and threw it away. And I've dug through my parts bin counter corner a lot. That's why it's a mess. Just kidding, it's always a mess. But you see that box? Right there? That's them. They've been right there this whole time. I was looking for a tan box. That box is black. That's the one I need. But I didn't lose them. Now that I'm completely stressed out, let's talk about our coilover build. So, these strut cartridges, one of the shortest ones. I'm not going to say the shortest one you can buy. These are from a Mark I Volkswagen Rabbit. Now, those, nice and short. Chinesium, Taiwanesium, eBaysium coilover sleeves. And, well, we're going to shorten this housing enough to fit this strut cartridge with this gland nut holding it down and centering it. And then install this coilover sleeve. We'll weld a ring down here to stop it from going down too far. And maybe we'll even use these chintzy little set screws they sent us to lock it in place. And then we will install it all back together. There's some little top hat adapter boys. We're going to use those in the factory top hats. No camber plates on this build. That should give us adjustable ride height, and since we're shortening this cartridge and going to a shorter stroke shock, should be able to at least match the 3 inches we did out back, preferably 4 or 5 up front. So we'll have to do some measurements, check our depth in here, and see how much we're going to need to section out in the middle of this nice, clean, straight cuts. You know I'm extremely good at those. And then weld it all back together. Make sure it's a good penetrating weld. And grind them nice and flush so these can slide down past it. Just like that. Coilovers. All right. So, remember when I said we wanted to get these gland nuts off clean because we very well may need to reinstall them. Well, turns out the gland nut that came with our Volkswagen shock, definitely larger diameter. So, not going to be able to work. Which means on this one, we're going to have some work to do to get air freed back up. But, nonetheless, I digress. Accuracy is what's really important here. So, I've marked here, this is the depth that our gland nut goes into the housing. So, that's as far as we've got to be able to jam that thing down. So we want to stay a little bit less than that, so that when that gland nut goes in, it can really push down and hold the strut in. Now, my calipers, well, they don't have the fun little plunge depth finder doodad. Well, they kind of do, but for the sake of numbers, I'm probably not going to use it because there's not a measuring scale on this end. But from the top of the shock right now to here, see, that bottom's not even flat. We can't even measure off this. Dang it. Arr. So back to our very accurate measuring device. We'll go and hit a real quick mark on this drill bit to find depth. So, from the top, make it drop with that, whoa, not going there. From the top of the tube to our mark here, we've got a height of 3 and like an 1/16, 2/16. I can't read my standard. Yeah, so looks like 3 1/16, 2/16. Don't quote me on that. I can't read. So we need to take that and subtract this to find out how much we can take out in order to section this tube. So since we don't want to cut too close to the top and we don't want to cut and heat up around our threads, I've subtracted our thread height out of this. We just want to take that amount out of the middle of this tube. Can be literally anywhere. Could be at the bottom. Can be anywhere though. So we're going to take out roughly 70 millimeters, which sounds like the amount the Japanese dudes do A86 ones. It's like it's meant to be. So we'll mark this, try to do a nice, clean, straight cut so we can put this back together, and then we'll jig it up, weld it up, and move on. Chose to go where our old spring porch was sitting. That way all the grinds we welded or ground down, any imperfections in the tube there, they'll be cut out. So this is our marking for our 70 mil we're going to pull out of it. We'll cut that, jig it up with our special service tool again, and move it down. All right, we've got our shortened strut tube, ground a nice bevel onto each edge, so we'll have somewhere to get some good penetration in our weld. And I'm gonna tack this special service tool onto our upper piece. It's got a nice straight edge. It'll help us stay perfectly in line when we start doing our finish weld on here. Quick grind it off, weld it in, and then on to the next step. Now, unfortunately, even though I don't think these welds need to be ground down and hidden, we're going to grind them down for sleeve fitment. So, grinder and paint, welder or you ain't, something like that. All right, shortened 70 millimeters. Whoop. So, this is our new fully extended height versus our old fully extended height. Probably about 3.5 inches difference. And that's at full extension, and we have plenty more room for droop on this side if we want to go low. But I have a hunch that we're probably going to need to max that thing out to be even close to rideable. So we will probably not be able to run our collars that low. We'll probably bring them to the top of the tube. Well, our new stopper for our sleeve, piece of exhaust pipe. Boop, boop. Cut that up. Took a slit out of it so we can clamp it down to the appropriate size for this tube. And then we'll just weld that in there. Weld the slot for a little bit of extra. And should be good to go. How to make an Ace Hardware run. Grab some washers. So I should have known better. I vaguely remember having to do this last time I built coilovers this way. But here we are. Boy, the spool makes this thing unpleasant to drive. All right, so hit the strut casings with some paint, letting those dry. We had to run to Ace because, well, the top hats provided in our coilover kit from the Amazon Rainforest website, they're completely flat on the top. Well, the bearing on our strut hat, well, it's recessed ever so slightly. So, in order to have the load be on that bearing rather than sitting on the outside case here where the thing would be almost impossible to steer, we had to find a washer to place between there. So now, once everything's assembled, we jam our nut down onto there. The load here will be tight only on the bearing, and our steering will be nice and smooth. Well, here's our finished product. Don't mind the zip ties, they're just for the aesthetic appearance of keeping everything held down and tight while it's sitting here on the bench because, well, the shock has, I don't know, 2 inches more height than the freestanding height of their spring. But we made homemade Nardo gray. We got the primer with clear coat on it. Yeah, so ready to go back in the car. Got them both complete. And these spring rates are probably wildly too stiff for that Corolla. But hey, you know, it's what we got. Let's go. Man, oh man, oh man, oh man. We made quite the mess today, but also we made quite the success today. Look at that thing. 3 inches lower in the back. You know, it's a little weak, but it's kind of this nice mild rake. Kind of muscular, tough, and kind of respectable, you know. It's not the full-blown, all-out, stanced the heck out look that we maybe normally go for. But I didn't even have to work fenders on this thing, which is great on this side because, well, if I do quarter work, it's going to break up there by the window where it's rusted through. So, not bad. We did it. One day, 3-inch drop blocks in the rear. I don't know, that took like 40 minutes. But the coilover build, that, let's be honest, that took some time. Some doing, some want to, some welding. But we're, it was a $70 coilover kit. Only used half of that. Call it 35 bucks. I think the front shocks, they were the cheapest Mark I Volkswagen ones on Rock Auto. So probably 18 bucks a piece. 10 bucks to ship. So what? $50 there. So I don't know. We're like $90 into building coilovers for the front of this. You can't beat that. Adjustable ride. Stiff. Let's ride it around. Let's drive it. Well, she did stall once it came over here. For whatever reason, we weren't getting fuel to the car. But I slammed the hood and all of a sudden it worked. So, you know, haven't gone over like 13 miles per hour, but it's basically perfect. Oh yeah. What a ride.
Here you see me mean bugging someone I think might be a suspected Kia boy, Hyundai Kia thief, coming back to the scene of the crime.
Running out of gas again, I think.